Hello, everybody out there in social media world. Welcome to Powerful Potential and Purpose. And today we are going to have another author interview with my guest coming up in just a moment. But I want to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. First of all, if you don't know me yet, I am Gloria Coppola, a life coach, a natural born empath, yes, an author and a publisher. And we work with heart-centered entrepreneurs and leaders or anyone that has a message to impact the world in a positive way. And so our upcoming book that is called The Path of Awakening was actually a name that was given to me by God way before everything that's happening in our world right now. So I find it very interesting that this is happening at this moment in time. So we have 7 authors, one of which is with us today, that have shared their path of awakening. And I think a lot of people right now are awakening. And with that thought in mind, I'm going to bring on our special guest this morning, Maureen, and let's bring her in the light here. Hi, Maureen. How are you?
Hi, Gloria. Nice to see you, hon.
Nice to see you. It is an auspicious time, isn't it? That we're awakening our consciousness on many levels, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit profound, actually.
And I know that the authors, including yourself, which we're going to talk about today, went through their own healing journey, not only before they got involved in this, but during the process too. Is that not correct?
Oh, yes. And how ironic the timing of it all, right? So,
How ironic. Well, I want to thank you for showing up today in your busy schedule and bringing some enlightening wisdom to our audience today. And if you're listening live, please come on and say hello to Maureen. If you have questions for either one of us, drop a line below. And if we don't get to answer them right now, we will come back and answer them later. So let's get started. So Maureen, when we were talking earlier, we were talking about your journey, your path of awakening, and I want to have you, tell the audience what was your biggest aha that you had, that moment that took you by surprise.
so the aha moment was when you, as my brilliant book writing coach, asked me some intuitive questions. And those questions had me really take a look at my own life. And when I did that, there was this pattern that I wasn't aware of that showed up for me. I thought it was something that was just with a particular person. And what I realized in that moment was that, in fact, it was a pervasive pattern through my whole entire life. And that pattern was related to a need in my own person that was attracting very narcissistic personalities into my life, into my career, into all kinds of aspects. So when I had that opportunity that you gave me through those questions to look from a completely different vantage point, I can honestly tell you that it is continuing to do work in my life. So it's
Beautiful.
that aha moment wasn't just in my story that I was sharing, it actually applies to my entire world. So yeah, it's a big aha.
That is a big one because I remember your draft and I know you as a life coach and I thought, So let's be honest and real with you. Actually, thank you, because not everybody is open to that. But I had a feeling that you would be once I saw the perspective of where you were going. And it was amazing how you took that story that was focusing on the outside and you brought it to the inside. And so big kudos on that.
Well, yeah. So what I was given the opportunity, the profound opportunity to do through that process was really, rather than, I was really focused on putting a lot of blame. I'm going through a really tough divorce in my world right now. And as a coach, you don't always get the opportunity to be coached. So that in and of itself was such a blessing in my world. And so it was a lot of fun going through that with you, Gloria. I truly appreciate that. But when I was able to see that I was playing the blame game and that I had this profound opportunity to really step back and take responsibility for my own life and my own choices and my own ego and my own needs, it really has colored my entire world.
Mm. And your story, your short story is called When God Shows Up. How did you come up with that title?
So ironically, I came up with that title because when I made that shift, I realized that my relationship with my divine higher power, and in my world, that God, that authentic relationship was what really opens up my world. It taught me a lot about myself. It was an area where I was able to apply a lot of my own coaching tools that I had in my back pocket to actually get myself to a place where I could be in that space with God and really authentically listen to Him. So when I
Do you,
realized that, I was like, wow, maybe because He's the one, and through my conversations that opened my eyes, that maybe that was really what this was all about.
do you feel that very often when we are looking on the outside, blaming, shaming, whatever, that we've lost that connection with our divine, with God, our source?
I think there's a lot of merit to that question, actually. And I think, yes, for sure in the moment. So for when you're in that space of blame, the blame game, I call it, yeah, you lose that relationship almost completely. It's really hard because you're no longer showing up. It's really hard to allow that. It's hard for me to allow my divine higher source into my world and even be able to hear from it, right? Because
It
we have these
reminds
like crazy masks and filters going on, and we're not listening anymore. We're not
no,
showing
it reminds me of that saying. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. If you're in someone else's business, you're not in your own.
up. Oh, I
You ever
love
hear
that. That's
that?
brilliant. No,
Yeah,
that's
I remember
brilliant.
hearing that years ago, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, if I'm over there, then I'm not here."
Yes, exactly. It kind of reminds me also of what we were talking about earlier. It's that whole conversation about being present in the moment,
Yeah,
which as a life coach is really critical to us, right? Is to be able to be present in the moment, not just with ourselves, but with others as well. So
that's
yeah,
right.
it's pretty big stuff when you look at this whole process. I have learned so much and I've grown so much just by taking on, this opportunity that you offered up, by writing this story and sharing this story with people.
Okay. So you also had talked about, a big lesson, okay, that you had. Would you say your biggest lesson or takeaway in this healing process was your connection to God, or was it something else that came up first?
Maybe a little bit twofold. So I think it did definitely get me back into a more intimate, authentic relationship with God. But at the same time, my biggest life lesson I walked away with was something that I actually personally coach in, which is the power of choice. I think, there's different aspects of our world where I was applying it, but the place I wasn't applying it was with myself, just in terms of being able to get to that place of accepting where I was at in my journey, that it was all good no matter what was showing up. It didn't need to look a particular way. And so I chose to come from a place of acceptance and self love, which I hadn't been doing. So the
So
power of choice opened back up as a tool to me through this process. And
yeah,
yeah, I'm exercising it a lot now.
good. So I believe in that too, that we have to make choices. That's our responsibility. But what can you offer any of the viewers on how did you get to that point and what are those tools other than awareness? How did you get to the awareness stage? It's like when I'm working with clients too, I'll say be aware of what you're aware of, right? Go in deeper. Good morning, Leslie. Um, so, what can you offer to our viewers that helped you? Because, when we're in that world of chaos, when we're in the blame mode, when we got all our own stresses, it's not always easy to see things and be aware of them very clearly. What did you do to make that happen?
That's an interesting question. I I actually took the time, I'm thinking back to that time, right? I took the time to sort of still to make a choice to still my life, right? In the moment. It wasn't any earth shaking anything. It was just, you know what? I need to step back. I need to step back and I really need to look at what's going on, right? And not be at the effect of all the things, all the circumstances, all the stuff coming at me in the moment. And the minute I made that choice to just stop and be still was when the clarity came back in to my head, even in a moment, right? It doesn't need to take hours, days, you know, it was just simply in that moment I chose to be still that I could actually start to look at, wow, like I was completely being at the effect of what was going on in my life in the moment, in that situation completely. And I went, okay, now what do I do? Right? It's like you get back to those simple questions for yourself and not try to make it the mountain that it could feel like it is, or the overwhelm, and just take baby steps in. So maybe another piece of this was learning how to be generous with myself.
Mm-hmm. And I like what that you said, you know, basically you had to show up, you had to quiet, you had to be still, you know, and that's what all of us are going through right now. With, you know, the virus being around the world, we had to take a step back. We had to look at our lives and reevaluate. And I wonder how many people out there listening, after you heard what Maureen just said about going through the process of her own story in her own life, how many of you are taking a step back? How many of you reevaluating, like she shared earlier, patterns in your life and all these other things that we do that maybe aren't the best choices? So again, if you're just joining us, we've got our author Maureen Hatfield here. She's a life coach and a team manager in the Talbot's retail store, and she's got a beautiful smile, as you can see. And she's going through a lot in life. Yet, guess what? Here she is. Not only did she share her story from a very, very deep and painful place, but she is rising up and opening her heart and healing. And now she's sharing it with you guys in our new release of Path of Awakening. So there's several of you out there this morning. Thank you for joining us. And Kelly says it's exactly what she needs today. And it's probably what a lot of people need today, which is why we are here. So during these times of uncertainty, like we're experiencing right now, how does someone tap into their divine source? Like first you said you become aware of yourself, right? Your
Right.
path. How did you tap in? You taught, your book is called When God Shows Up. How did you get to that point? What did that look like and feel like?
Well, so it's always a journey, right? And so one of the things that I have done for myself is kind of put my own little formula in place, Gloria. And how that formula looks is when I wake up in the morning, I make the choice to just come from an attitude of gratitude. And so when I come from that place of an attitude of gratitude, I will share with you one of my tools is I have a journal next to my bedside. And I will sit and I will think about what I'm grateful for in the moment as I wake up into this day. And I will actually write down those key points. So if I need to just remind myself during the day, I've got that. Then for me, I'm an energy person. I love positive energy. So I start to put together, I've got a playlist of inspirational and motivational music that I use. So after I've come from that place of an attitude of gratitude, I fill up with energy, positive frequency. And then I still myself. So I apply that whole practice I just told you about just making a choice to still my mind. And I tap in and I just quiet my mind to the place where, and I start a dialogue, an authentic dialogue with, now my divine higher source is God. And I start dialoguing with him. And I actually
So
use
I want to ask you a question. Slow down a second, okay?
yeah.
Some great tips here. So she wakes up, attitude of gratitude. I'm sure a lot of you do that. I know I've been doing that for decades. She's got her morning journal, morning pages, morning notes. A lot of people call it a lot of different things. Music, it's very inspiring. And if any of you have music that you like, drop a link down below or tell us which one lifts you up. And what do you do? So Maureen is sharing how she got out of her patterns and relationships that were not working for her, not only personal, in her own relationship with partners, but business partners, people around her that had narcissistic tendencies. And through this process of writing her story, she had to take a look on the inside. And that's what she's sharing this morning. So if you have a question for her, please drop it below. So you use the word authentic dialoguing. What does that mean?
So authentic dialoguing is when you take off all the masks that you wear, all the inauthentic parts of myself, trying to look good, be perfect, whatever it might be in the moment, and like literally just get real. Like get real, raw, authentic, good, bad, ugly, the whole mess, and bring it into that conversation and into that relationship. And I do that with God. I literally will visualize myself as if I am either sitting right next to him, or, in my world, it might even be in a humble posture, submitted. But I literally, depending on where I'm at in my own emotions or in my own journey in that moment, just lay it all down, for lack of another way to say it. And so that dialogue becomes very, I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. I'm not trying to make it look like something it's not. And coming from that accepting place that, you know what, everything's okay just the way it is. And it's amazing when you come from that perspective with my divine power, but also with when I'm with God, but also with my friends, my business partners, people I have an opportunity to interact with. I have found that I'm starting to, during this time, connect with people at a much deeper, more authentic level.
And you bring a little bit of that. You bring a little bit of that into your story as well. I remember talking to you about the mask and that vulnerable space, that authentic space. And I remember you sharing with me how like you said, your relationships are changing and you're finding more people are actually opening up to you in different ways, right?
Well, yeah, it's fascinating to me because we think that we have to look a certain way because that's the way people are going to like us, right? But through this journey, what I'm finding out is that the more vulnerable, the more real and authentic you are, it creates like a safe space for people to step into that for themselves. And so, I've been getting into amazing conversations with people in very quick timing. And, when you're in that space, it's amazing how each other you share from a place that really has both of you walk away from that conversation refreshed and renewed, or with a new insight, or just that feeling of like, wow, my
So I
life
have a
is
question there. I have a question. Okay. So I agree with you that when you can open up like that, it gives you greater insight on yourself, on people, on the world. But we also have a situation going on now in the world that sometimes people are trying to open up real and authentic, and it's not turning out the same way because people aren't willing to accept that truth or hear that truth. So I'm just talking about personal stuff. I'm not even talking about the world stuff. I'm talking about our own personal things. So what I would like to address here, do you feel that in order to be authentic like that, there is a level of healing that you have to do yourself to become vulnerable, to attract that so you don't keep attracting other types of situations, conversations, and patterns?
I think that's a great question, actually. And without myself not just going through the healing process, but I'm continuing to go through this. I mean, this is a real, my divorce is going on right now. It's a real situation on top of what's going on in the world. So there's a lot of moments that can get really overwhelming. And if I hadn't taken this journey, I don't think I would be at the level where I'd be able to attract people who can feel that safe space. It's difficult to get to that vulnerable place and that really authentic place without doing the work, if that's
Mm-hmm.
for lack of another way of saying it, right?
And I think, I know there's another story in the book too, about someone also kind of, like you call it, the mask, kind of creating a personality that we think people expect from us, and thereby finding out that we are not happy, we are failing in different ways, or not failing, but we're not aligning and attracting what we would really like in our heart and soul. And therefore, we go through these more difficult, challenging times. And this other author, like yourself, also realized on a different level, which you guys are going to find, that there's such a wonderful common theme, knowing that I did not pick these stories, okay? Realize that. The people that are in this book kind of just aligned and attracted, okay? And little did I know, when they were all complete, there would be a common thread, just like there was in Women Standing Strong Together. And so when I listened to your story about the mask, and I, obviously did the editing in one of the other stories too, about this other woman, Julie, who will be on soon too, doing her author interview, you both speak about this kind of perfection outlook in different ways, in totally different ways, okay? And you both found a way, similar but different, to realign yourself to create a life that you want. And I find it very fascinating. And both of you had to take steps. Magically show up, did it?
No, it did not magically show up. And a lot of times we don't want to look at it, right? It's like the ostrich with their heads in the sand. You just don't want to look at it. But the reality was, for me, perfectionism was still wreaking havoc in my world in a deep way that I wasn't aware of, right? So, yeah.
I'm wondering how many out there listening can relate to that you have felt like you have to be perfect. And what does that really mean? I mean, we're perfect just the way we are, right? So
yes.
Try harder to live in this high maintenance world to be perfect for who and what, then we also bring a lot of stresses on ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree. And I think when we're doing that, right, we kind of exude that same stressful energy around us. So I will say that when you're in that space, you attract more of that space, actually. So yeah, it's freeing. It's freeing when you get an opportunity to just go, you know what? I don't have to look like that. In fact, there's way more juice in the life. It's way more fun in life to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a few more moments. If anybody has a question, comment, anything you want to share, including on your own journey, drop a line down below. And Maureen, I want to just kind of wrap this up in the next few moments. What else would you like to tell our viewers about this journey, when God showed up?
So maybe what I'd like to share is, make yourself available. These are profound times that we're in right now, really uncertain times. And I find that if you just take those moments in every day to still yourselves, just stop and allow yourself to just be where you're at and choose to love yourself where you're at, and then just make yourself available. When we do that, those opportunities to be able to serve ourselves and others come up in almost miraculous ways. So this is, we're being given an opportunity right now in our lives to not be our normal, busy, hectic selves or in our typical patterns. It's a great opportunity to take right now to do that.
It
And if
really
you get
is.
an opportunity if you get an opportunity to sit down and journal and write, or even consider taking on something like this with you, it'll change your life. And it has definitely changed my life for a brighter, better.
Kelly said growing up perfect was used as a description by her family. It was like it was a goal, and I can totally relate to that too. So this is what I want to put out to Maureen and all of you. Maureen, source is God. Some of you say universe, whatever. Okay. I'm going to use God just because it's relatable to most of us. If God or the universe created us in the image of imperfection, and you believe that, then why are we so hard on ourselves? Why?
Is that a question for me?
Sure, if you would like to answer it.
Because I think that's a great question for all of us to be sitting and really thinking about right now in our world. I can tell you, I wake up every morning and I try to really sit back and think about any of those more toxic things that might be going on, how to just really release them and let them go. Because I try to get myself to that place where we're not doing ourselves or the world a service when we have that bat in our hands and we're constantly beating ourselves, right? So, yeah.
Like you just said, we're constantly beating ourselves to be perfect, to be loved, to be whatever it is we're working on. But if we are love, if we are that essence of love, and we say love conquers all, and love, can diminish fear and all of that other stuff, then why is there so much fear and lack of love right now being spread? What's your thoughts on that, Maureen? I know you didn't expect this question, but
my thoughts. Well, no, I'm actually living it, and I was just having this conversation with a group of gals yesterday. My thought on it is, again, it goes back to that power of choice. When I choose to just come from that place of love, it's what shows up for yourself is more love, and you start to attract it. And so I think when I'm tapped into my divine power and I realize that, because God is my divine power also, I'm a daughter. I'm his daughter. Like, I'm his cherished daughter, cherished. So when I come from that place back out into the world, then I get to love on other people. And I get to show them what it feels like, or give them a taste of what it feels like to feel cherished also, right? I don't know any other way now, that I would want to live moment by moment.
So if we moment by moment made that choice in every situation, okay, and the reason I'm putting this out there to Maureen and to all of you is because we all have challenges going on in some way, shape, or form. And Maureen shared earlier that she's still in the process of her divorce and getting rid of that part of a life that did not serve her. And yet, you guys know, if you've been through a divorce, it's not easy. So how can you guys help Maureen remember to stay in love when those challenges come up? And Maureen, how can you remind yourself? What's really important? You actually said the word earlier. What's really important in all of this?
Well, acceptance is really important. And then surrounding yourself with reminders. I surround myself with reminders. I have an affirmation on my mirror in the morning. There's particular scriptures that I use, and I journal, and I go back to that place, right? That's why it's so important to me to write down what I'm grateful for in the day, because it's keeping it top of mind. We have those things in place. We intentionally put those things in place to keep it top of mind. It makes it so much more difficult to go back to grabbing the bat. And really, right? It's just so much more pleasant and brings happiness and joy in when I choose just that love and acceptance. If that helps.
It says my challenges are usually self-made. It usually takes me to step back. Yeah.
It is a choice. It's like plugging it in as an intentionality, Deborah. It's and that's where I think what I was just speaking about becomes so important to me. If I have my go-to scripture and I have my go-to affirmations around me in my world, like I plug them in places. So even if I'm traveling, I'm driving, I'm at the grocery store, I've got it, right? If I know I'm in one of those moments, I can grab that if I want to. It gives me that tool, that opportunity to like take that step back. Or even if I think I'm trying to take it and I know I'm struggling trying to take that step back, I've got that tool to lean on that says, okay, yep, take a deep breath and just do it.
And Maureen, I would say, my followers, listeners, our audience out there follow, a spiritual type of path. And we're all human and we could all get caught up in stuff, challenges, whatever you want to call them. But I think you made a really important point for the step you took and for the advice out there for everybody, no matter what you're going through, especially through all the challenges now. Step back, get away from the distractions, get away from the things that upset you, get away from the things that distort your loving heart, okay? And really allow yourself to listen more deeply and find out what the truth is. Debbie says, I'm going out for a walk and I'll play with Gaia. Yes. And Mother Nature is so important to recharge, to refill yourself. Don't you agree, Maureen?
I absolutely do. And Debbie, I do the same thing. I go take a walk. I mean, I think getting yourself back out and breathing in that fresh air is absolutely critical. It's like that's one way to go tap right back in immediately, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So I want to thank those of you that are listening live. If you're on the replay, hit pound replay. Please feel free to come in and ask questions. We will come back and answer them. In the meantime, look out for the release of Path of Awakening, A Healing Journey, and check out Maureen's story, When God Shows Up, because not only her stories, but all the stories, if you're going through any type of challenging, anything at all that you feel like you need some inspiration, guess what? You're going to find it in there. Kelly says, I feel I've been looking for at least one person that I can be completely accepted by, yet they nudge me toward my higher power. It's my mind that distorts my being. You got it, girl. Absolutely. Don't look outside of yourself. It's right here. You're welcome, Debbie. Thanks for stopping by. So thank you all for being here today with Maureen. Give Maureen a big kudos for having the courage to share from an authentic place her challenges, looking in the mirror to take off her mask and be her authentic self, and give her some love. Give her some hearts and give her some love. And may you all walk on your healing journey, find that path, awaken to your true self, and remember, you're perfect just the way you are. Maureen, thanks again so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Gloria, so much.
Elizabeth says just what I needed today. Debbie's clapping and giving you hearts. Thank you, blessings.
Thank you.
Maureen behind you 100%. Yes, we all need to be behind each other and side by side each other. Deborah sending you
I feel the love, you guys.
I just want you to know all these authors really, really went into a very vulnerable and authentic place, to share with each of you. And I know there's a story for everybody in there. So whether you've gone through grief and loss because of a divorce, because someone died in your life, because someone had Alzheimer's and can't remember who you are, because your parent dies at the age of 5, you become the ward of the state, because you lose yourself to opioid drugs. Guess what? I just gave you a hint of a lot of the stories that are in the Path of Awakening, and everyone that wrote, everyone, not just Maureen, went through the healing process because they really did have to take a look at themselves in order to raise their own consciousness level. And that's what they're here to do at such an auspicious time in this world. It gives me chills, Maureen.
I know, me too.
So if anybody else is looking to tell their story out there, please reach out to me. There is the website. We are creating more types of packages for people, but Maureen's in a collaborative book with 7 authors. And it makes it a little more affordable for people that want to tell their story. But we're also working on some solo books too, because some of the people that have been in these books with us before now want to tell their solo story. So reach out to me if you have a question, if you're ready to share your story. And Kelly says, thank you. You're welcome. Blessings to you. I've been watching and following your journey. Yes, you have for a long time. And I've been watching and following yours, girlfriend. So everybody, thanks again for being here, for supporting Maureen. Keep sending her that love as she's going through the changes in her life. And we're not just talking about menopause. We're talking about divorce. That's a whole other topic, right? It's all part of it. I think the whole planet's going through menopause right now.
Talk about the floods.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, we were talking about emotions today and relationships with ourselves and everything around us. So feel what you need to feel. Reach out to somebody to help you. And remember, stay healthy. We love you. God bless.
God bless.